What up, my ninjas? I am Strident, and I am back with kind of a mismatch or mishmash of information today. First, I got my PlayStation fixed. I talked to a good friend and kind of got things where I needed to get them. So now I'm playing. We jumped back on the Ghost Recon and jumped back on some Vegas, and we played. First game we beat when I fixed it was Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Dumbest title ever because Revengeance is not a word, but the game itself is fucking epic. I'm gonna give you kind of a quicker review than I usually do because I have a bunch of shit that I want to talk about. But the plot is really simple. Raiden, in the years after the previous Metal Gear games, Raiden has become part of a PMC called Maverick, and Maverick pretty much they offer protection to high profile VIPs, I guess. Anyway, a rival PMC called Desperado Inc. kidnapped the VIP that Raiden is protecting and his people are protecting, and they hit them hard, and they're all cybernetically enhanced. Most of the characters in the game are cybernetically enhanced. That's the focus of this game. And there's also one issue I have with that, but I'll get to that later. Cybernetically enhanced villains in the form of Desperado Inc. kidnap the VIP you're protecting. They kill him. Then they wound Raiden. And the swordsman of the rival team beats the shit out of you, essentially. So then it cuts to a couple years later. You have your new cybernetic body and all these upgrades, and it's the version of Raiden that you see in all the promos and shit like that. He looks pretty badass. He almost reminds me of Kashan on steroids. You know what I mean? If you've ever seen the movie Kashan, there's a lot of things that they kind of... You could see there was an inspiration there. He even has the dog and shit from the TV series from back in the day and the newer one and the manga, everything. But anyway, long story short, Desperado is involved in some really twisted shit. Raiden catches wind of it. He goes rogue, leaves his group. His group being the cool people that they are, they kind of offer their help, and you have to take down Desperado Inc. The plot is really outlandish, which you would expect kind of from a Metal Gear game, because typically the games are kind of political, but then they have all this information that always leads to a kind of weird truth, And this game actually has it. At first I wasn't feeling the game because before I ever played it, when I just saw trailers and stuff, I was like, damn, this stuff looks really crazy, but I wasn't feeling it because Platinum Games makes some random shit, I didn't really like Bayonetta. The gameplay was awesome, don't get me wrong, but the game itself, the whole package was a turnoff for me, with all the hair turning into clothes and her being naked when she does certain moves or half naked, and it's just shit that I don't really need packaged in my games. Vanquish was cool, but it seemed so derivative of games like Halo and stuff like that, even though they turned up the insanity factor. And for now, that's all I can think of from Platinum. There's a couple other games they made before, and I just wasn't really interested in them. I kind of used to hold them in the same space that I hold Suda51. I don't like that guy. I don't like his games. I don't like his imagination. It bothers me. But then I played this, and I liked everything that happened in the game. It kind of evoked this old school feeling, this nostalgia of like playing, games from the 16 and 32-bit era, where the game is training you so that when you get to the last boss, you have to use everything that you learned. Because a lot of games these days, they give you a shitload of moves and stuff, but there's one technique of all of them that works the best that you could use as soon as you get it all the way through the game. I mean, Devil May Cry is a perfect example. God of War also has that too. There's always a combo that you can use to beat anybody, and or a weapon. The Call of Duty games. It just across the board. This is how programmers seem to and game designers seem to design games. This game was gradual because you could rely on one combo, but if your sword was weak or your weapon was weak, then that one combo wouldn't really be doing you that much justice. Or you'd get to a boss that would just shut that combo down and you'd have to learn how to do other shit. So I was impressed with how there was a progression as far as your skill level and versus the boss's skill level. So kudos to Platinum Games for that. The music. At first, I hated every track I heard. But I heard it in the background while playing the game. But as I started playing more and I'm listening to the words that are playing, some of the songs grew on me. Easily the best music is at the very last couple battles between you and Armstrong in Metal Gear Excelsius, and then just you fighting Armstrong. It's the best shit in the whole game. The non-vocal tracks are better in some ways than, or more well done, I want to say, than some of the vocal tracks. I mean, if you're like Angry Joe and you just love fucking metal, then you'll probably love every single one of these tracks. If you have an appreciation for all kinds of music and you're not just stuck on one genre, then you'll like certain tracks and you won't like others, But the standout tracks are what was it called? Collective Consciousness and It Has to Be This Way. The two best tracks in the game. The lyrics, the dramatic the drama of the music, the pacing, the way that when you play the game, and this is another thing, the sound design in the game is amazing. While you're playing the game, when you do different things, there's sound, different things are done to the sound of the game. There's different filters and things thrown on top of it. It just, I don't know, different things are accentuated and other things are pushed back. Some things are pulled forward. You just could see that they had a command over every aspect of the game, from the sound to the character designs to the actual action itself. So props to Platinum and Kojima Productions for this, because Kojima Productions did the story and the cutscenes. Platinum Games did the game. So I don't know, it was a surprising little turn of events for me. But yeah, if you see it, get it. That's a definite, at least A. I'll say it's an A, I won't say A++, because there's some things that might turn you off if you're not a huge Metal Gear fan. But here's my thing. I've played every Metal Gear except for 3. And the ones that were on like the PSP or the Vita or whatever. PSP, I think it is. I am a fan of being thematically consistent. And since you're dealing with cybernetics, everything I've ever seen with cybernetics, there's some talk of posthumanism. Terminator had it, even though a lot of it, it didn't show up until, what was that one? Salvation, I think it is. Ghost in the Shell, it's like the underlying message of the whole entire series. Deus Ex, same deal, both of them. And then this one, nothing. Yeah, don't mind that. Like I said, I live pretty close to the hood, so and I live close to a fire station, so it could have been one or the other. Anyway, but there's no mention of the fact that a lot of these characters gave up their humanity to become machine. You know what I mean? More machine than human. And I thought that would have been a good plot point to add to, what was already a really well done game with a interesting story. And then they had a Guyanese dude in there. So if you know me, you know I'm half Guyanese. So I know Guyanese people. And it was like some American dude pretending or trying to act as a Guyanese person. Why didn't they just hire a Guyanese actor? I mean, the shit he was saying, the two things he said Ras and he said skunt. And I was like, holy shit, he actually said skunt. I say that shit sometimes to make my mom kind of shudder because it's a word that she was not allowed to say as a kid. But skunt is like the equivalent of, motherfucker or something like that. You know what I mean? And Ras is just ass with a lot of emphasis on the word with, adding an R. But, you can use it in all kinds of different ways. But, he said things and it was like, man, if he was really Guyanese, the way that he would have said that shit, it would have came off so much better. But, but at least they did put a Guyanese person in there. I never thought I'd see the day until I did it. So props to them for that too. So anyway, that game, you need to play it. If you like action, you like wild craziness and shit, go play it. That's it. So I spoke for 10 minutes and I said this was going to be short. But anyway, you guys said you like the longer videos, so I'm going to keep it longer. So moving along. I figured I would talk a little bit about random Joe shit that I've been seeing around. And, I already did a review about Retaliation. And, it was kind of meh. I had to watch Resolute about 10 times to get that taste out my mouth, but the taste is officially washed out. I'm so disappointed that Roadblock didn't use any of his cool stuff on that nice vest of his. But anyway, I'm also disappointed that not a single Yo Joe was yelled in that film. Instead, they put hell yeah and hoorah. I'm like, really? Was it that hard? And it's funny because my son pointed it out, and I was like, shit, I can't believe I missed that. That's pretty bad on my part. But, I mean, it was along with all the things that were missing. And you still have people fighting to tell you that it's a good film. It represents G.I. Joe really well. Yeah, right. It's funny because I watched it for a second time, and I noticed a lot of things, you know? There's a scene towards the end where Roadblock is running towards a dock, and Firefly got to the dock first, jumped on the Fang boat, and he pointed at Roadblock and had the 5 or so, Vipers get off the boat and get on the dock and run towards Roadblock. But then it cuts, and you see Roadblock shoot one of them, and there's one that's still in the boat, and Firefly kicks him out of the boat, and the rest of those guys, the other 4, are gone. I'm assuming that that would have been the scene where Roadblock would have got to use all his shit on his vest. But it's kind of weird, man. There's lots of other things that just, I'm still real disappointed that the first time you get to see Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes fight on screen, side by side, it's in the dark. So you really don't get to see them do all this cool shit. And it's sad because John Chu spoke so much about how movements can tell a story, but then he obscured so much of the movements, and it's just like, man, what the fuck? So, I just had to throw in a little bit more about that film, It's just such a letdown in my opinion. And it's so strange that, coming off of Rise of Cobra, that they could do, an equally mediocre job in some ways, and that Rise of Cobra could surpass that film as a whole, because it was a better budget, and it seemed like they had more fun with Rise of Cobra. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy, because I always sound like one of the few fans that actually remember what the Joes were about and what they do and, how they should be presented, because whenever I see a lot of the stuff going on, I'm not really, especially in these films, I'm not impressed fully. But I didn't forget what it is that the writers and directors are trying to emulate. You know what I'm saying? Like, G.I. Joe was not Shakespeare. So there are some things in G.I. Joe that are cheesy, but like for a reason, It was done on purpose. Because, in the real armed forces, we have no fucking deep sixes running around in giant Iron Man suits so they can do something underwater. We have no wetsuits that walk around in wetsuits 24/7. Come on, let's be real, We don't have soldiers that walk around trying to look like the negative stereotypes. There are no shipwrecks walking around with their chest all sticking out of their shirt looking like they jumped off the Village People. So when people are trying to make them so realistic that it's just boring, it's like, really? And then, like, if you're going for that, why didn't Beachhead show up in any of these movies? He's so simple. A Joe who strives for perfection wearing a fucking balaclava. How they miss that? I don't know. Anyway, on a completely different note, we still don't have the new figures. I've been looking around, but I've been kind of lazy about it. So I'd read on a few places that the Joe figures would have been all out. All waves would have been out by the time the movie dropped. I've read that they're coming out in May, which is kind of stupid considering that the film will have, come and gone by May, because that's the way movies do these days. They don't really spend that much time in the theaters. But why not take advantage of the hype that was surrounding it and release the figures all before the movie, and then, by the time the movie's out, you can get all the shit that you want if you like the movie or not, whatever. So I'm kind of annoyed at that. It's like they're really dropping the ball, and the fans are not seeing it. Excuse me. I read that I was on his tank, and people were saying things like, buy the first 2 waves, or else the second 2 will not come out. I'm sorry, people, but, and that's not even the craziest thing I've heard, but that's not even close to how this thing works. I've heard people say that they didn't have as much time as Rise of Cobra had, or as Hasbro had during the release time of, or up to the release of Rise of Cobra. It's not even, that's stupid, because there were several years, and about, 10, maybe 12, about a year in between, maybe 9 months to a year in between when we were supposed to get the movie and when we did get the movie. So they had extra time. So that's not valid. As far as the buying the shitty waves to get the new waves, the way it works is when the movie's greenlit, as soon as they have production sketches, which is why we got so many concept figures, they start production on the figures. It's that simple. So the fact that Rise of Cobra, they spent so much money on it, and we got so many figures, just figures upon figures, even figures that didn't show up in the movie but were done in the style of the movie. I mean, we just got so much. It should show you that Hasbro, they're capable of doing this stuff. They just chose not to this time, I don't know. It really kind of saddens me because I still really want a couple Ultimate Dukes and a couple Ultimate Flints to make a little squad, and I need that Jinx because I haven't had a Jinx since when I was a kid, so that would be nice. But anyway, I came across these concept images of Colton and Cobra Commander in his movie style getup. Wouldn't it be nice to have figures that look just like these two images? I'm just saying, for all you non-believers out there. Because a lot of people kind of come at me like I'm crazy because I pointed this stuff out, but I mean, how did they omit some of the best shit in the movie? I'm really, 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 really amazed and want to know, what is the explanation for this? You know what I'm saying? Lastly, I have been working, like I told you, on a G.I. Joe short that kind of showcases what I think should be the way that you handle using, the old Joes and the new Joes. Because in my universe, I pretend, or I like to think, that several people have used the code names of the Joes over the different generations of the team. So I'm going to give you a quick preview of what I'm talking about in terms of tone and kind of like what the action should look like. So, just chill out and check this out for me.
Stand still. If you move, you die. Who dares interrupt me?
What'd you think? That was just a little preview. I didn't want to give away too much. There's still more going on, but I figured I'll just kind of cliffhang it real quick and let you guys, maybe you'll want to see the rest of it. But the idea is the Iron Grenadier that he's fighting is obviously enhanced by, you can tell by how hard he hit him. But Joes are tougher than regular soldiers. And this is a flashback too. That's why I'm using kind of the 25th anniversary figures. I just wanted to set up what it was like back in the day, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to set up what it's like now. So that's really, you know, it's a work in progress. There's a lot more to it. I'm still working on it as we speak because, you know, since I'm doing this frame by frame and it's not quite animation, it's kind of like an animatic. It's just kind of slow moving. So bear with me, be patient, and you will see the rest. That's really all I want to talk about right now. So stay tuned for some more reviews. I picked up the Retaliation version of Duke, Flint, the Black Dragon Ninja. I got another Joe Trooper, some True Hero stuff, some Halo stuff. So I got a lot of things that I'm going to be reviewing, you know, in the next few days, or next few weeks or so. I don't know, but you know, I've put up some new stuff on the Joe community page. I want to do a little kind of a showcase of all the artwork I've done with the Joes, you know, with G.I. Joe characters, both my original ones and the existing, you know, Joe characters. And I'll probably put that up here first and then put it up on the Joe community page. I don't know, you know, there's just a few things that are in the pipeline, so you know, stay tuned. I haven't forgot about you guys, and you know, of course I do this stuff to relax because things are pretty stressful. But I'm glad you guys are here watching this stuff. I'm glad you guys have been watching some of my other stuff. I'm seeing a lot of cats from the Joe community pop up on Facebook, and I'm really glad to see you guys. So I hope more of you jump on and check out what's going on. And that's really it for me right now. So you guys have been great, and I will talk to you later. So peace outside.